Episode 1.9, The Azora Clan. Eventually the team went their separate ways to rest up until it was time to head out to the countryside of the city that night. That night they all met up by the abandoned mansion that once belonged to one of the wealthiest families in America. As nice as this place is, I wonder why someone would leave it like this, asked Ed. Honestly, I don't know what to tell you, replied Bruce. Some people just want to appreciate the good things in life, I guess. Shh, said Raven. Keep it down. Ike's about to open the door. As soon as Ike opened the door, the sounds of squeaking bats came closer and closer to the team until a whole swarm of them fled out the mansion. They all jumped back as soon as the swarm of bats came together and formed the Reaper. So, it finally came, said the Reaper. My name is Silhouette. Whose soul shall I take to the afterlife? No way, exclaimed Justin. You're from that day. Justin immediately remembered the events that took place that fateful Sunday after getting the first-hand look at Silhouette since then. And forget this mission, dude, exclaimed Aaron. Let's get out of here. Where do you think you're going? Asked Silhouette. The fun's just getting started. Soon afterwards, the Reaper summoned his weapon, a blood scythe, and struck it against the ground. At that moment, the shadows of JSA appeared right before them to terrorize the group. Now my make that this thing to Silhouette. Destroy them all. His funds did as instructed and fought toe-to-toe with the JSA group. The shadows fought exactly like them, which made the fight far more tedious and difficult than ever. As the group continued to struggle against their shadows, Silhouette casually sits back and watches. Let's be honest here, says Silhouette. I'm not here for you all. I'm only interested in the girl over there, he says as he points directly at Christine. The Reaper then uses his powers to lift Christine up telepathically and plunge her into a small black hole he unleashed as the girl screamed for help. Her friends did everything they could to save her, but their shadows prevented them from doing anything besides focusing on themselves. The two were teleported in a nearby fall field lake where a brief skirmish took place. In every attempt, Christine used everything she had to fight against the evil entity. However, all her trials ended in terrible failures. I'm deeply disappointed, said Silhouette. Even Noelle's death was a hope for her to flee from the laboratory. You're just holding out on me. Noelle? You know Noelle? Christina asked in shock. Oh, so you do know Noelle, replied Silhouette. In that case, you're just holding out on me. Come on, he exclaimed. Stop trying to take the high road and try to kill me for God's sake. The Reaper exclaimed as he repeatedly punched and kissed it. And kicked the poor girl. As Silhouette grabbed Christine repeatedly by the neck and threw her across the lake, the blue auras finally emitted from her body as she plunged at Silhouette with her death strike. After Christine finally struck a blow to Silhouette, the blue auras receded. However, she soon realized that her strike had absolutely no effect on the powerful Green Reaper. What is that? Was that it? Exclaimed Silhouette. And here I thought I was up against another strong Azora, but you're nothing more than a mere fledgling. Azora this, Azora that, Christine replied. If you know so much about the Azora clan, why not enlighten me on it too? Very well, replied Silhouette. We the Azora are half-human, half-construct hybrids who start out with vampire powers, above and beyond the stereotypical vampires you've seen in those horrible movies. For centuries, we've been so complacent with our unique abilities that humans referred to us as vampires and began giving us names like Dracula, the Nosferatu, and Lamia. But in reality, we're actually a family of incomplete reapers that only require the element of light to become whole. In case you're wondering, I attained the power of light, when I devoured a young girl's companion and gained its power centuries ago. Instantly, I evolved from vampire to reaper, and now I'm currently the Azora clan's greatest success. Great story, Christine sarcastically replies. But none of that has anything to do with me. Very true, replied Silhouette. However, I don't understand. You possess some of the same qualities of the Azora. You don't belong to a tome, nor are you bound in Erebus. Yet for some reason, you're perfectly fine here on the surface world. What are you saying? Exclaimed Christine. You really think I have the answers to any of those questions? Then tell me, replied Silhouette. What's your connection to that blue aura, and how did you destroy my partner, Noel? Despite you being a mere fledgling, even you were able to tap into that small percent of Reaper blood within you. It would seem as if Noel must have pushed you to that limit. Yeah, I'm still at a loss here, replied Christine. And if you refuse to acknowledge who you are, the Azora clan has no use for such an error, exclaimed Silhouette. Now show me that truth and power that defeated my partner as I ground you and your friends to the dust. Not on my watch, exclaimed a familiar voice. I'll be your opponent instead, exclaimed the Reaper. Show yourself. Out of the mirages came Task as he rescued Christine and the others from their shadows. Mr. Law, what are you doing here? Asked Christine. I thought you were still grading midterms. Well, you see, there's an interesting story behind it all, but I don't have enough time to tell you that right now, replied Task. Really? Replied Christine unamused. So you're the famous Reaper I heard so much about around these parts, said Task. You made a huge mistake terrorizing my team. I'll make you regret that. Task then takes off his glasses and prepares to fight Silhouette. Congratulations, most people run away from these parts, replied Silhouette. But at least you'll be the first lucky soul I get to reap tonight. Task then casts his various mirroring illusions of himself as Silhouette attempts to slash him with his blood sight. Both sides fight a good amount of time until the Reaper evidently cuts through Task as he falls to the ground, presumably dead. At that moment, Christine screams Task's name and tells him to get up. You see that? Explains Silhouette. You should have let it out when you had the chance. However, the moment Silhouette blinks, he wakes up inside Khalid's Da Vinci Zone. What? Impossible, exclaimed the Reaper. What just happened? How did I lose? Meanwhile, back at the abandoned mansion, Task checks around and asks if everyone was okay. We're fine, replied Christine. But how'd you get that thing to just sit and stare at you as you defeated it? What else can I say, said Task? It's all thanks to my powerful illusions. Ha! See what I said? Exclaimed Aaron. I told you those things turn to smoke. I might be wrong, said I. But don't you think Silhouette was a bit different compared to any other enemy we fought? Yeah, unlike those other odd characters, Silhouette was definitely more powerful than any of them, replied Justin. Hey, everyone, I just called in to Nathaniel about what just happened, said Raven. He apologizes for the inconvenience and is going to compensate us with something. Yeah? That's the first bit of good news I've heard all night, said Justin. I'm getting tired. Let's go home. Yeah, after dealing with that thing, replied Bruce, I don't want to waste another second here. As the group went to their cars and headed up the road, two sinister shadows were watching them the entire time above the mansion. What do you think, Khalid? Asked the mysterious woman. Do the children pose a threat to your plans? Not in the slightest, replied Khalid. If anything, they'll prove to be minor nuisances. However, I honestly did expect more from Silhouette Neftis. He was supposed to be the Azora clan's first successful Reaper. Indeed, replied Neftis. Silhouette definitely would have had the job taken care of had not their feelings to me. However, he should regain his full power once their rebirth arrives. That's great to hear, replied Khalid, but we must obtain the emerald first. The time draws near, and this time we'll get the job done on our own. Soon, a gust of wind blows as there aren't seen anymore. This has been episode 9, titled The Azora Clan. The next episode will be titled The Separation. And like always, don't forget to share, like, comment, and subscribe for more. Thank you all for listening.